It was late October when Claire moved into the old McAllister house at the edge of town. The neighbors had warned her that the place was unsettling, but she dismissed their comments as small-town superstition. The house was a Victorian relic with peeling paint, a creaking porch, and ornate ironwork that looked like it had been lifted straight from a Gothic novel. From the moment she stepped inside, she felt an uneasy energy, as if the walls themselves were watching. The first night was quiet, save for the wind rattling the windows. Claire unpacked boxes in the dim light of the hallway and felt a chill pass through her, though the heating was working perfectly. In the kitchen, she noticed scratches along the floorboards, deep, deliberate lines that didn't match any furniture movement. Shrugging it off, she continued her work, but a sense of being observed clung to her. By midnight, the atmosphere shifted. Footsteps echoed from the attic above, slow and deliberate, though she was alone. Claire's heart pounded as she ascended the stairs to investigate. The attic door creaked open, revealing a room covered in dust and cobwebs. In the corner, a rocking chair moved gently, as if pushed by an invisible hand. A faint whisper followed her gaze. "Get out before it's too late." Claire froze, her breath catching. The voice was soft, almost pleading, but tinged with menace. She wanted to run, but something compelled her forward, drawing her closer to a trunk in the center of the attic. The wood was old, scarred with etchings that resembled letters from an unfamiliar language. As she lifted the lid, a rush of cold air enveloped her, carrying the faint scent of decay and something she couldn't name. Inside lay a collection of personal belongings, diaries, photographs, and a single cracked porcelain doll with eyes that seemed to glint with awareness. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut, and the whispers grew louder, more urgent. Claire realized the house was alive with memories, perhaps spirits trapped, all bound to the McAllister name. Every step she took was met with resistance, a weight pressing down on her chest, as though the house itself were testing her resolve. The doll's gaze followed her, unblinking, and she felt a deep connection to it, as though it were the key to understanding the house's dark past. Claire's hands trembled as she picked up the porcelain doll, its cracked smile strangely unnerving. The attic seemed to stretch endlessly around her, shadows deepening in corners that had been well lit moments before. A sudden thud echoed from the far side of the attic. Claire spun around, heart hammering, only to find nothing. Then the whispers returned, insistent, weaving through the room like a living fog. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, muttering fragments. "You shouldn't be here. Leave before it's too late. Don't open it." She clutched the doll tighter, feeling an unspoken urgency. as though it were trying to protect her. As she continued to read, the diary revealed a shocking secret. The McAllisters had dabbled in the occult, attempting to bind spirits to their home for eternal protection. But something went horribly wrong. Instead of securing the spirits, they had trapped malevolent entities, dark shadows that fed on fear and loneliness. And now, decades later, the house still hungered. The attic's temperature plummeted, and Claire could see her breath forming icy clouds. The rocking chair began to move again, faster this time, scraping against the floor like claws. Objects tumbled from shelves without cause, and a chilling laughter echoed from the corners. Desperate to escape, Claire tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged as the walls seemed to close in. The whispers, now a cacophony of anguished voices, crying and warning and mocking her all at once. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stilled. The doll in her arms felt warm, almost alive. Its gaze shifted to a loose floorboard near the trunk. Compelled by instinct, Claire pried it open and discovered a hidden compartment beneath. Inside lay a small, tattered book, bound in leather and etched with symbols that resonated with the carvings on the trunk. Claire's fingers trembled as she opened the tattered book. The pages were filled with strange sigils and incantations, accompanied by detailed instructions for rituals she barely understood. The air around her seemed to thicken, pressing against her chest like a living weight. Each word she read aloud seemed to echo unnaturally, bouncing through the attic as if the house itself were listening, responding. A shadow detached itself from the far corner of the room, darker than any darkness she had ever seen, and it moved toward her silently, gliding just above the floor. Claire's mind screamed for her to run, but her body felt rooted, as if the book and the doll had woven invisible chains around her. She realized then that the whispers had changed. Claire followed the instructions cautiously, drawing intricate symbols on the floor with chalk found in a dusty corner. Candles flickered to life as if by unseen hands, their flames casting grotesque, dancing shadows on the walls. She recited the words, her voice quivering, but strangely gaining strength with each line. The shadow paused at the edge of the circle she had drawn, writhing and twisting, its form pulsing with anger and frustration. Suddenly, the temperature dropped further, and the air crackled with unseen energy. The doll in her arms seemed to hum, vibrating lightly as if resonating with the ritual. Claire realized that the doll wasn't just a relic, It was a key, a conduit for the spirits trapped within the house. With a deep, terrified breath, she placed it at the center of the circle. The shadows recoiled, writhing and shrieking, voices overlapping into a deafening roar. Time seemed to distort. Hours passed like seconds. Claire's vision blurred as ghostly figures emerged from the corners. Faces twisted in anguish and rage. She pressed on, chanting with every ounce of her strength, the words feeling alive on her tongue. Finally, a blinding light exploded from the circle, engulfing the attic. The shadows screamed once more, then dissipated into thin air, leaving only silence. Claire sank to the floor, exhausted, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. The doll lay motionless, now just a harmless porcelain figure. The attic felt lighter. Claire slowly rose to her feet, her legs weak and trembling, the adrenaline fading and leaving a raw, exhausted ache in its place. She glanced around the attic, now eerily still, porcelain face unchanging. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling that it had seen more than she ever could. She picked it up, cradling it as though it were both a burden and a trophy. As she descended the narrow attic stairs, she noticed faint etchings in the walls, symbols she hadn't seen before. They pulsed softly, a heartbeat, barely perceptible. The house wasn't entirely at peace. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in fiery streaks of red and gold. The normal world seemed impossibly bright, almost jarring after the oppressive darkness she had endured. Claire felt a shiver run down her spine, a mixture of relief and lingering fear. She began keeping a journal, meticulously recording every detail: the whispers, the shadows, the book, the doll, the ritual. She wanted proof, a way to understand what had truly occurred, though deep down, she knew some things were beyond explanation. And sometimes, late at night, she would hear it, a faint tapping, almost like fingernails against porcelain. She would freeze, heart hammering, before remembering the attic. The doll sat on her shelf, silent and still, yet somehow she knew it remembered everything. Claire had survived, yes, but the line between the living and the restless had blurred forever. And in that blurred line, a story had been written, one that would haunt her long after the house had faded from view.